It started like any other job. Jack Turner had been hauling freight for over 20 years, driving long, lonely highways in his 18-wheeler. He knew every rest stop, every diner, and every stretch of cracked asphalt like the back of his hand. But the route from Denver to Phoenix was always his least favorite. 100 miles of desolation along Highway 46, cutting through the empty desert, with nothing but radio static and the hum of tires on pavement to keep him company. It was just after midnight when he spotted the figure on the side of the road. At first, he thought it was a mirage, a trick of the headlights against the dark. But as he got closer, he saw it was a woman. Pale, barefoot, standing in the dirt, wearing a tattered white dress that fluttered in the dry wind. She raised a hand, her eyes hollow and black, her face frozen in an expression of silent pleading. Jack's gut twisted. He had seen enough horror movies to know better than to stop. But something about the way she stood there, the way the air around her seemed unnaturally still, sent a chill down his spine. He pressed harder on the gas. The first sign that something was wrong came minutes later. His CB radio crackled to life, though he hadn't touched the dial. A static-filled whisper seeped through the speakers. At first, he couldn't make out the words, just a faint, rhythmic hissing. Then, between the bursts of interference, he heard it clearly. "Help me." Jack's grip tightened on the wheel. His heart pounded in his chest. He reached for the radio, about to respond, when his headlights flickered. The dashboard lights dimmed, the entire truck shuddering, as if something massive had passed through it. Then, the woman was there, in the middle of the road. He slammed the brakes, the tires shrieking against the asphalt. The truck lurched forward, barely stopping in time. But when he looked again, she was gone. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. He glanced at his mirrors, half expecting to see her behind him. But the road was empty. Just endless, open highway stretching out into the night. Shaking his head, he muttered a curse and put the truck back in gear. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe the desert heat was playing tricks on him. He needed coffee, a break, anything to shake this eerie feeling. He pulled into the next truck stop, Rosie's Diner. The neon sign flickered weakly, casting a dim red glow over the parking lot. Inside, the place was nearly empty. A single waitress stood behind the counter, wiping it down with slow, deliberate movements. An old man sat in the corner booth, staring into a cup of coffee. Jack took a seat at the counter, ordering a black coffee and a sandwich. He didn't even notice the waitress staring at him until she spoke. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Jack gave a dry chuckle, shaking his head. "Maybe I have." The waitress didn't laugh. She just kept watching him with those dark, knowing eyes. Then she said something that made his stomach drop. "You saw her, didn't you?" Jack froze. "What are you talking about?" The waitress set down the coffee pot. "The woman on Highway 46, the one in white." Jack felt the hairs on his arms stand up. He swallowed hard. "You know about her?" The old man in the corner finally spoke. His voice was rough, like gravel scraping metal. "She's been out there a long time. Since the 60s. Some say she was a hitchhiker. Some say she was run off the road by a trucker who fell asleep at the wheel." He looked up, his eyes cold and empty. "But all of us who've seen her, we know the truth." Jack didn't want to ask, but something inside him forced the words out. "What truth?" The old man took a slow sip of coffee. "She's looking for someone to take her place." Jack felt ice settle in his bones. The waitress cleared her throat. "If I were you, I wouldn't go back out there tonight." Jack glanced at the clock. It was nearly 2 a.m. He still had miles to go, and his delivery deadline was tight. He couldn't just sit around all night because of some old ghost story. But when he stepped outside, his truck wasn't empty anymore. A pale handprint stained the driver's side door. Long fingers, too long. And when he climbed into the cab, the smell of something rotting filled the air. He wasn't alone.